evening. Good evening. Good evening. Welcome to the Minorities and Mental Health Stress Awareness Session. I don't know about you, but I am excited about this. This is much needed, much necessary, especially for the African American, the Black and Brown community. We don't talk about it. We sometimes joke about it, and sometimes we just laugh it off. But tonight, we're going to create a safe space for our community and everybody, of course, to make sure that you understand that stress awareness, it comes in multi levels. There's more than just the financial stress, there's more than just the relationship stress, and we're gonna get all into it. I am JayCee. You can catch me on the AM Click Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. And of course, I am not alone. My OG with me, Konan. What's up?
What's happening, JC? And they can make sure they check me out 3 to 7 Saturday and Sunday on Magic 95.9. And we want to give a special shout out and thanks to Sheppard Pratt and Nami, Maryland, for putting this on and letting us be a part of it to help people that are going through a lot, especially since COVID.
Yes.
Mental stress and awareness has been at an all-time high. So with that being said, we want to introduce our panel.
Yes, indeed. So I'm gonna kick it off with the first person I see to my right, Miss Chalarra Sessoms. How are you?
Doing great. Yes, I'm excited to be here. Yes, I am Chalarra Sessoms.
All right, and we're gonna keep it going with Terri Griffin. Terri, welcome.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Dr. Terri Griffith. I'm really excited to be here, really excited to add value. I am passionate about decreasing stigma around mental health and wellness. So I appreciate you guys facilitating this. It's so needed. Looking forward to the discussion.
All right, my brother and my friend, Akil. Akil and I have known each other for at least, I would say, maybe 20 years or better.
Yeah, absolutely. What's good, gang? What's good? I'm Akil Taffe, RCA Records, and I'm excited to be here. I think it's our second one. Yeah,
that's right.
I'm glad we're discussing this in our community.
Yes,
and you've helped people with your Conscious Crusade too.
Absolutely. I wasn't going into the bio just yet, but yeah, that's part of it too. And we'll dive into that as we begin the discussion.
Yeah. For sure. So we're going to start with Chalarra explaining everything that she does and why she is here.
All right, perfect. Yes, again, I'm Chalarra Sessoms, and I am a proud clinical social worker for the past 25 years, having experience in the mental health field. I'm a board-approved supervisor to support social workers and counselors in training. I received my formal education from Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia, and Virginia Commonwealth. I am a Virginia native. Some of the things that I enjoy doing, and I think that brought me here with you all, is I enjoy providing behavioral health trainings throughout the state of Maryland with a focus on resilience. How can we build resilience within ourselves, within our communities? And then understanding adverse childhood experiences and what that means. And then also being a mental health first aid trainer. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a proud member of a consultative all Black female social work group that provides training and, decreasing stigma across the state. In 2019, I was honored as one of the Daily Record's Maryland Top 100 Women because I am a leader in community work, in mentoring, and in leadership. And diversity, equity, and inclusion is very important to me. I'm the co-founder of the Lower Shore LGBTQ Coalition on the Eastern Shore of Maryland. I spearheaded the Black Lives Matter renaming Boulevard here in Salisbury, and I am a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated and the Links Incorporated. And my core beliefs are that all people are valued, should be valued, respected, and supported. Thank you.
We can't bypass this bio, but the last part got me out the way. All I'm gonna say is, ooh. That's all I'm gonna say. Okay, there we go. There we go. There we go. All right. We're going to keep it going. We have Miss Terri Griffith with us tonight. Tell them a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I appreciate you sharing your bio, Chalarra. That was
Come on
a
now.
very impressive bio. And we need more platforms to talk about what we're doing and how we're improving the community. So I respect that. So I am a psychologist at Sheppard Pratt. I started at Sheppard for my postdoctoral fellowship. You know, I was in LA for my internship for a year. And I was like, what do I want to specialize in? And I thought I was going to specialize in treating substance use disorder. However, when I was looking for postdoctoral fellowships, I saw Sheppard Pratt had an opening. So I decided to do 1 year, and then 1 year turned into 2 years. And then after that, I got promoted to running their intensive outpatient program. So right now, as a psychologist for the hospital, I run the intensive outpatient program that has transitioned from virtual treatment to inpatient starting this week. I'm really passionate about, like I said earlier, decreasing stigma around mental illness. A lot of people who look like us don't trust healthcare providers to help them. And there's a lot of fear. So I'm really passionate about this topic of anxiety and stress because we're living in a world that's ever changing, and mental health and wellness should be your utmost priority. So one thing that I really like to do is help people get educated on what's appropriate. I started a platform called Chat with Dr. Terri. It was a podcast, and now it's kind of turned into this platform to provide education and knowledge to people, really to normalize talking about these things. One thing that I really love is helping nursing staff get educated, because the eating disorder unit has a multidisciplinary team with a psychiatrist, with nurses, with nursing staff, with psychologists, occupational therapists, expressive therapists. And so I want people to know how to provide good care, you know, in one of the leading hospitals in the country and in the world. So one thing that I'm looking forward to is continuing to have more conversations like this. And I hope that I can add value today.
Oh, we know you're going to add value.
That's right.
We know you're going to add value. Okay. That's why we here. Okay. I love it. I love it. Konan, who else we got, man?
We have my man Akil. All right, Akil Taffe. Now go ahead and tell us about you, your Conscious Crusade, and everything that you do.
Got you. Well, my day job, I'm a regional promotions director for RCA Records. So what that entails is it's my job to get airplay at urban radio for all the artists that sign to RCA. Current artists we're working with are WizKid, Tim's, SZA, her, Chris Brown, you know, a little slight flex, Jasmine Sullivan, you know, we got a little operation. So that's my day job. However, I discovered my dharma, my purpose, maybe about 7-10 years ago. In 2014, I got my 200-hour yoga certification. Wow. And I've been teaching at least 2 classes weekly since February of 2015. I currently only have 1 public class. That's at Movement Gym in Columbia, Maryland. But I also have a program in 5 Howard County Public Schools, and I also have a yoga program at the DC Youth Jail in Northeast DC. And these are with residents who will be transitioning to the federal system, so they aren't going home. We started working with them in December, and again, the contract ends in September, but this is my first contract with the youth jail. I've worked with some federal institutions before. And I mean, I'm just an advocate for continuing to permeate wellness in the urban community. And I like the fact that now it's not as taboo as it was not even like 5 or 6 years ago. So it's incumbent upon us to continue to have these conversations. And let's chop it up.
That's a good thing, man. And us for knowing each other for 20 plus years. This is my first time hearing that you're going in here working with the youth. Yeah, man, we need to talk after this because that's something that I love. But we can jump right into it.
Yeah,
and start talking to you guys and letting you guys explain this mental health issue, because some of us did not know that it was a real thing. All right, and especially during COVID, it has really come to the forefront that a lot of people are dealing with mental illness and stress and stuff. And can we talk about how it's affected the community and other people since COVID?
But can I jump before the professionals get in? You know what? We were aware of mental health issues because growing up in the hood, we knew that family crazy. That family, oh, he crazy. We knew it. We just kind of accepted it and work with it, from our POV. But we did know who the crazy family was in the neighborhood, the crazy lady, but we didn't necessarily attribute it to mental health, knowing and seeking help,
right.
and that type of thing. But we were aware that they do have some issues.
Well, I mean, growing up, yeah, that's what we said. But when it became mental health issues, is late in the 1900s, early 2000s, stuff like that. When other people started getting into situations, they said, "Oh, well, they have mental health issues."
Right.
But we weren't diagnosed at young ages with mental health issues. It was ADHD and stuff like that. They called it something else. They tried to blame it on something else.
But like, you from DC and y'all from Baltimore, there was always coming up. I'm from Chicago. The guy who was walking down the street barefoot, and you knew him. He was part of the community. You probably knew some of his family, but we just didn't have the wherewithal to seek help.
So let me ask this question then, and then and Terri, you can start off, and then Chalarra, you can jump in with that. What are the things that can be labeled as stress? I know that's a broad question, but I know a lot of times we only attribute stress to financial or this relationship is toxic. So what are some things that are labeled under or can be categorized? I mean, I use label. What can be categorized that could be a stressor?
Well, I think for one thing, this month, April is National Stress Awareness Month. So this is awesome that we are using this platform to be able to discuss it. And so there are 3 types of stress. There is positive stress or tolerable stress, toxic stress. And so we know that we all experience some type of stress. And so how you experience it versus how I experience it, Terri experiences, Akil, is all different. And so one of the things that I strive to do, and I hope that we're doing this this evening, is to talk about acknowledging whatever that stress is for you, understanding how it resonates in your body. So that means being in tune with your body, and then figuring out what works for you so that you can tailor your own plan for yourself, and not necessarily needing a mental health professional, but what you can do for yourself to be able to address your stress and whatever stresses you and whatever it looks like, feels like, because we are not built to endure toxic long-term stress for long periods of time. And so it takes a toll on our bodies. Even when we don't know it, our body, if we listen to it, our body kind of tells us, like that aching back, that headache, that twitching in the eye, that something's going, out of whack or whatever with us. So I guess I'll lead with that.
Yeah.
I can just add that I think I want to normalize being stressed, right? And I know we're going to get into talking about anxiety. I also want to normalize being anxious. I think it's on a spectrum. And I feel like stress is our reaction to life circumstances. However, certain levels of stress can be incredibly debilitating. I appreciate Chalarra mentioning that some people don't have to see a therapist or see mental health professionals when they're stressed, but for some, it might be the difference between life and death, right? When you think about the number one killer of people who look like us and just people in general who live in this country is heart disease, right? And what's the contributor of heart disease? High blood pressure. And what contributes to high blood pressure? Stress, right? So for some people, it's that serious to manage your stress. So I'm hopeful that throughout this conversation, people can kind of be in tune to their signs of stress. And like Chalarra was mentioning, our body talks to us. We often have a lot of signals of stress. Like a month ago, I was very stressed, and it kind of scared me because I found myself functioning at this level that wasn't normal for me. And my body was talking to me all along, but because I was so forward-focused, worried about work, I kind of ignored that until I got really scared and I had to book a massage. And I had to think about, should I take some PTO? And I know we're probably getting into talking about coping with stress, but stress is a natural reaction to life circumstances. But at various levels of stress, it can be very dangerous. And I want people to just be in tune to that.
And both of you all said this, so we might as well hit on it at this point. sometimes people that are not in tune with their body, and I know Akil, if you doing yoga, you'll be able to chime in with this too. So how do you know when your body's telling you that you're stressed? And Terri, you or Akil, you can start. I'm sorry.
Well, it's being mindful and paying attention. You know, like Terri had mentioned that, you know, she just kind of ignored it. She was like, you know what, I'm on grind mode or hustle mode. But you know what, if your body, whatever the response was, be it acne, be it certain pains, be it, you know, fatigue or something like that, you really have to be in tune with how you feel. And I'm thankful, and it seems like there's a pendulum shift. Like we're starting to do things like Black people are hiking now. You know, we're biking clubs. With Black men are in yoga. Like these are centuries old practice that we've gotten away from. You know, our stress relievers is this and drinking and going to a loud club with so much music. And I'm in the music industry, but good God, like I've gotten into reading books like 2 or 3 pages a day just for like mental exercises. So it's incumbent upon us to, first of all, I'm glad that we're acknowledging it, but we have to be open to expanding our responses. You know, it could be to seek some professional help or not. It could be to go into a yoga class or not. It could be to go book a massage, or I need to book me a massage, and I'm going to. And I know that like now it's not just for like a quote unquote, well, it is a physical benefit, but it's deeper than that as well, because you're also opening up those channels so energy can flow. So yeah. We always do something.
I love what you just said, Akil, about us as, I'm going to say us, I'm saying this as a Black female or my community, us opening ourselves up to learn and practice different ways of taking care of ourselves than before, than maybe what we thought just the majority did. So, yes, like when you see the Black girls run and Black men do this and all those spaces and safe spaces, and just, you know, feeling like you can just be one and grow together in those spaces is just, I think, been so helpful. I think there's been a lot of growth through this COVID-19 for many of us too. Not only are we just trying to survive, but I think we've been thriving and growing to probably heights that we didn't think that we could, because we have been faced with things and maybe even had to connect with people in different ways than we did before. So,
Go.
I thought Terri was going to say something. Terri, go ahead, Terri.
I was just going to add with the original question of like, how do we know that we're stressed? I think is what you were asking, JayCee.
Right.
And I think people can be still and mindful. This is what Akil, I think, was also talking about with yoga. And, you know, you don't always have to be meditative to be mindful, but being mindful just means being present right here, right now. So right now I'm on this broadcast, my armpits are sweating, I'm hot because I'm a little nervous, right? It's natural. But if I'm stressed, I might experience that at a heightened degree. You know, you might have gastrointestinal difficulties. You might find that you really can't eat, or you're overeating all of a sudden. You might find that you're becoming forgetful. Maybe you're feeling confused and disoriented because you're so overwhelmed, you know? And so our body teaches us and sends messages to us to get us to slow down. But oftentimes as a society, when we're hearing those messages, we ignore, like I was just talking about, and we speed up and we overwork. We get so used to functioning at this level that's not sustainable. So really slowing down and listening to your body could be so helpful in you realizing, like, okay, something's going on. What do I need to do to manage this? Right. So I love the idea that, you know, the examples that Akil brought up, going hiking. When I lived in LA, Black people were hiking. And I was like, wow, this is something that I want to get into. Doing yoga and not being embarrassed to be a man, you know, a cisgender male doing yoga. You know, reading a book like someone was talking about, slowing down and kind of going against this idea of speeding up, you know, embracing things like resting. There's nothing wrong with resting. I had a patient today who was saying that, you know, she rather overwork because resting is synonymous with being lazy. Who taught us that? Oh, wow. Who taught us that?
Culture.
Right? And
Culture.
so I'm hopeful.
Social media.
Right. This hustle culture
Steve
that
Harvey.
you know.
I didn't want to mention no names, but since we name dropping, he is going
Seriously.
viral for that conversation he had.
This idea that, we'll sleep when we're dead is not serving us anymore.
At
So I'm
all.
hopeful that people get more socialized, just doing the opposite. You can rest. You can be still and be mindful.
Well, it's funny because I just said that on my radio show this weekend that people have to be still and we have to be in tune and consciously aware, because preserving your energy is one of the things that people need to do. Now, to switch for a second, what role does cultural beliefs play in understanding mental health and treatment?
I think everything. Your culture informs your decisions. Well, I mean, and that's why you'll see an Indian guy, they'll sit in lotus or what have you. People from different, your culture definitely influences how you handle or address mental health issues. Because in our culture, we had to toughen up about everything, get over it. But that's because of our experience. Right. We can't call for help. Be bigger than your problems, unfortunately, which led us to mask them. That's why we have so many. That's the source of that's part of the source of our problems. But now we're slowly, I think, like I said, we're slowly peeling back the layers. And as crazy as this world is becoming, we're also getting a lot more conscious. Right. You just have to be dutiful and resourceful to find what you want in your algorithm for real. Because
Right. Okay. And community plays a heavy part in that, right? And not just community where you live, but your inner circle, right? Because your inner circle dictates how you move. Sometimes you don't even need to go on social media. Just you saying that one call you made, girl, let me talk to you real quick. Yo, I need to holler at you real quick, right? And when you're projecting those thought processes onto other people, one, we don't know what they're going through. So they're only going to see it from the lens of them, dealing with it if they've been hurt in that same regard. So they're giving you the thought process that they have and that they've been through. And so trying to be as mindful as to who you share your energy with, and also, who you tell your business to, because if if you don't want it out there, just don't say nothing at this point, right? However, if you are willing to talk about it, then professionals like Terri, like Chalarra on here are the people that you would reach out to, so that way you can have a more conscious decision-making process and stabilization of saying, okay, there's nothing wrong with me. I just don't know how to process this. But my community doesn't understand where I'm trying to go with this thought process.
I think two of the strengths that we have as Black people also have to do with that whole cultural piece. One being our strong belief in family. And so I think sometimes in that, we have in turn kept our problems and issues only as a unit, kind of like Akil was saying, like you knew of that family member who was struggling, but nobody wanted to really talk about it in the public, even though everyone knew, or even to, to go to someone if it needed that. So that's one piece. I think the second strength that we have as a people is our faith, generally. And so, and then the flip side of that is sometimes with that, families have just kept everything, like, again, kind of insulated, and you only talk to church folks about it or your pastor about it, and anybody outside of that, probably maybe not. So I just wanted to kind of bring that
it's
up.
It's always been pray over it. God gonna get you through it, right? And there's nothing wrong with those steps, but there are some extra steps that need to be taken, right? Terri, I saw you come off mute.
Yeah, I was just going to piggyback on that, because I think that sometimes I feel a little torn talking about access to healthcare, because some people can't afford it and some people don't have access. And as you guys probably know, decades and decades ago, there was a lot of paranoia with, these environments for Black people. Random things were done to Black people to make them so afraid of health providers, and, Chalarra mentioning, the religious communities, oftentimes the recommendation is to pray it away. You know, how am I going to pray away my psychosis? How am I going to pray away my addiction? And I believe in God, and I think God can do anything, but he also gave us resources.
Right.
And so because of these messages over decades and decades, a lot of people don't feel comfortable reaching out. You know, Akil was jokingly talking about the man who's walking in the neighborhood that we all have seen, who we say is crazy.
Right.
And a lot of those labels make people feel uncomfortable and really insecure about asking for help because they don't want to be labeled as crazy, because they don't want to be taunted for not being able to just pray it away and muster through. Right. So I think stigma to me is like the overarching theme of what makes it really difficult for a lot of Black people and people of color to really access these services. So really trying to break down a lot of those stigmas and these myths about mental health and wellness is really important.
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. And
one of the things I would.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Akil.
I think, you know, that's absolutely what we're doing. And I think that's what we have to lean into this, you know, movement. So it won't just be a moment. One of the forefront leaders is like what Charlamagne the God is doing, because he has a big microphone. It's dope that he is almost, you know, he's an advocate for congruent counseling, or, you know, sitting in front of a congruent counseling. He's an advocate for that. And I think it has moved the needle because, you know, 7 years ago, 10 years ago, if you playing PlayStation, I don't play it, but if you playing a game, I'm just, you know,
right.
And dude, I think I'm depressed. Man, go get on, get out of here. But I think if you say that today, it's like, man, dude, I think I'm depressed. Well, you might need to holler at somebody about that.
Right.
Know? It's just that little bit where the conversation, we're not like, what are you? It's not foreign. It's like, yo, you know what? And we do keep things to ourselves, but what we need to lean into, because what you'll find is once you share something or disclose something, you usually find that you're not the only one. And I kind of learned that when my ex-wife and I, we lost our first child, you know.
Wow.
As soon as you mention it, it's like, hey, like he was like a whacker, like, you know, you mention a room with 20 people, there are like 7 of them. And it's like, wow. So that's the thing we have to kind of you know, get over our fear and get out of our own way.
Man, this conversation is getting great already. So make sure you share this live with 3 people at least, and to your feed. Make sure they come on, because if you have a kid, if you're not married, if you are married, don't matter. Stress don't have no gender, no age, no nothing. So make sure you share this. And of course, shout out to Sheppard Pratt and Nami Merlin. Co.
All right. Want to make sure that you drop your questions in the comment section so that we can answer those questions. All right. Minorities and mental health, stress awareness. Now, one of the things I think we need to talk about is anxiety and depression as well, and recognizing that, because my daughter had anxiety and depression, and sometimes I'll be riding her to work, and all of a sudden she'll just start crying. I'm like, what's wrong with you? She's like, I don't know. I just, you know, I was like, well, you don't want to go to work? No, it's not that. And she never really kind of talked about it. So I was taken back when we found out that that's what it was, and they wanted to medicate her, but then she started self-medicating because of what she was going through, and that kind of really threw me for a loop, because I didn't know and I didn't recognize it as that. So how do people recognize when someone's going through anxiety and depression or a mental illness that you don't identify with?
I guess I can start. I think one thing that we look at, especially when we're diagnosing people with like clinical anxiety or like major depression, is this difficulty impacting their day-to-day functioning, right? All of us, probably for the most part, take a shower, we brush our teeth, you know, we get out of bed, we go to work, we pay our bills.
It's better.
Right. I hope that's the everyday function. For
no judgment if you don't. But we do those days.
I work from home. Ain't nobody here with me. I don't want no window.
Well, we know Akil got on Zoom attire at this point. Great. All right.
I just want to loosen everybody up after she said that. That's all.
Go ahead, Terri.
I just wanted to be open. So we do those you guys are so silly. We do those day-to-day things, right? We maintain our responsibilities. When someone's like significantly struggling, they can't do those things. I've had patients who haven't showered for weeks. Wow. You know, I had a patient, I literally set a goal with her to shower once a week, because she was only showering like maybe once every 2 weeks, right? Her functioning was so impacted by her clinical difficulties, her clinical depression and anxiety, and of course her eating disorder, because I treat eating disorders, that she couldn't do it. So with people who are struggling at that level, seeing those things changing could be a sign. You know, sometimes people say subtle things that aren't just like regular everyday issues. You know, maybe they're reiterating some of these messages and maybe we're ignoring them. Right. And it's so hard because I often try to tell supports, especially supports who've had family members die by suicide. It's not your fault. You know, we could even see the signs and still try to help, and it could still happen that way. However, I just want people to feel comfortable reaching out because there are people who are willing and able to help. Right. And so sometimes, you know, as a person who's hearing someone talk about these things, just validating, just being a listening ear. Oh, I can't imagine how hard that is. You know, instead of trying to volunteer ways of supporting someone or like pushing them to go to therapy or taking them to church to pray about it, maybe asking, how can I support you? Maybe supporting that person is like just driving them to work or making them lunch or cooking for them because they really can't even do it, you know? And so I think if we just have more conversations and start, you know, changing the narrative around this, that could be the first helpful thing to do to really see if someone's really struggling, and then connecting them to professionals who are available.
Okay, real quick before anyone else says anything, if you're watching this right now, on the bottom of the screen, if you know someone that may need help or someone that is going through something and you can see a difference in them, across the bottom of the screen is sheppardpratt.org, the phone number for Sheppard Pratt and Nami, Maryland. Make sure you get in contact with them. All right.
Definitely. Chalarra, go ahead.
I was just going to add to what Terri just shared with everyone, that just as a layperson, as you know, just as a friend to someone or family member, I think we all just have to lean in and listen, like you said, Konan, like you saw what your daughter was doing and you responded. And so we just have to be courageous to ask each other how they're doing and truly give someone that space to be able to tell us if they're not doing well or if, hey, I'm doing great. And so being able to actually listen and lean in, and then with what Terri said, if someone needs, you know, resources to move beyond that.
You know, it's interesting that we bring that up. And before I ask that question, Glenetta Chancellor just asked, what is some advice that you could offer to someone who has a family member that battles depression and the family member's illness weighs on them?
Ooh,
that's a good question.
Yeah, that's a really good question.
Yeah,
because I mean, you're taking in somebody else's
energy
while you're dealing with your own stuff.
Yeah.
So, Terri, you are the psych professional. Let's start with Terri.
Right.
I always just really urge people to get connected to services and supports, right? Honestly, being a support person is a big job. And sometimes it can be very taxing. And that's just being honest, right? And so if you're someone that's supporting someone that has mental health difficulties and now it's weighing on you, you should reach out for your own support and services. I always recommend that people check out this website called Psychology Today. And the reason why I like Psychology Today is because there's so many different therapists in our country who are offering specific types of therapy. And many of them, you know, accept insurance, as well as they might, you know, have out-of-pocket pay or whatever the case might be. But I like that resource because you get to look through everyone's bio to see what they're talking about, what they specialize in, and really try as if you're at the supermarket. Try it out. Call the person. Have a consultation. There's another website called Therapy for Black Girls, and we're all Black here. So I think, you know, I should recommend that as well. I also recommend people check out that website. But if you're not Black, there's many services that are available to you, and many people are willing to help. So if you're supporting someone who's struggling, get your own support because it's a big job. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's also free resources. There's many support groups that are free that people can pop in on. You can simply just Google, what are some free support groups in the Baltimore area? What are free support groups in this part of the country? And you can even Google your specific difficulty and see if there's other women or men or people in general who are struggling in similar ways where you can get support. So I would recommend that.
Okay, and what about chat with Dr. Terri? You forgot that?
I know, but this is Sheppard's platform, but that is my personal platform. When I try to provide education, you can
I remember you said it.
You can find that on Instagram. I try to provide education and, again, open up these conversations to decrease stigma. And it's also a podcast. So, and in the bio, there's the link for Psychology Today to get resources as well.
Oh, this one's important. Randolph Weeks is on, in his chat says, I'm going through mental depression right now. I need help. My, wow.
Wow.
One was killed and my only son went through therapy, but it didn't help.
I believe, well, the first thing is the resources that are scrolling across the screen would be the first thing that I would suggest. And of course, if you're not open to having the conversation, right now, of course, I wouldn't want you to even go through that. But the fact that you're taking the steps to even be on here tonight means you still want the help in order to get to the other side of it. And that's the first part. So I would personally say, don't cloud your judgment and don't down yourself at the fact that you haven't figured out how to get through it, because you just being here tonight means you still have an open mind to being able to say, I need to get to the other side of this and I desire to. So the fact that, and especially being a Black man, right? Because we know our Black men, sometimes they just shut down and they talk to their homeboy and then they bottle it up and put a little cap on it. And then it's like, all right, that's it. And okay, I put that away, I put that behind me type situation, but behind doesn't necessarily mean handle. So, I would definitely say reach out to the information that you have on the screen. And of course, Terri and Chalarra, if you stay on to the end, I'm sure they'll give out their information as well to connect as well. And Akil, you being a Black man that does yoga, this man probably needs to be stretched in different ways, aside from just saying it from a yoga component, but probably the community at this point has to change around him too.
Can I add one thing? Going back to that last question was, I would say keep pushing forward. It's kind of like when you're trying to find your physical health doctor or any type of person that cares for you. That one person may not be the one that clicked with you, but it's I would just encourage to keep trying to find that person that you feel that you connect with on some level, that you can share your story with and grow and improve.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm sorry that you are experiencing this, but it's a process. It's a process, and it's a process. I don't have that experience, but I'm sure that it's a process. So just continue on, because giving up is not the answer. Unfortunately, that's where we are.
But we all deal with something that we all fight through. I say a lot on a radio show. We grow through what we go through, but we have to figure out a way to grow through it and get the help that we need in order for us to get better. If I can move on, I want to speak to the presence of racial traumas and how it impacts people's mental wellness.
Akil, go ahead, because I see you biting at the apple over there. He biting.
I have never experienced any direct, overt racism. Going in the yoga space, it's mostly white people. Black men are reveled everywhere we go, sometimes intimidated. But fortunately for me, I've always been comfortable in my own skin. So as far as racial animus at large, I mean, I don't like where we going as far as the political landscape,
right?
But my circle of white friends and that whole bit, I mean, a lot of the people in my social ecology, like from Baltimore, like they were marching into Freddie Gray. I mean, I know a couple of my white homies who are, yoga teachers, they got arrested. They were picketing. So as far as, I don't know, I'm sure that I know some MAGA supporters. I'm absolutely sure. And I'm just mindful to not have political conversations with them because I know that it will probably make me think of them differently.
Gotcha.
So what this racial animus has forced me to do, you know, they say, look, if you like people, don't discuss politics and religion with them. And I understand that now. I understand that now. Okay. Yeah.
So I can add to this because when people hear racial trauma, we might think of like the very severe acts of racism against Black people. But honestly, I feel like it can happen subtly in very different ways. Like there's something called microaggressions. And microaggression is just very subtle things that people who are not Black or of color might say to people of color that make them feel insignificant or less than, or that they don't belong. And so, you know, I work in a corporate environment. I'm one of 2 Black psychologists on my unit. And so I've faced microaggressions, you know, this reaction to me being a psychologist or to having a doctorate or to being knowledgeable. And I feel like day to day, you know, we can experience those subtle microaggressions in so many different ways. And over time, it takes a toll on you. Because even if we're the most confident people or doing all the yoga and things like that, when you're getting these messages that you don't belong, you're not good enough, you are less than, you are insignificant, you know, you buy into what you're hearing. And then your brain starts impacting how you feel. All of a sudden, maybe you're not volunteering for those opportunities. Or all of a sudden, maybe you are feeling uncomfortable in spaces where you do belong. And so I do think when people are more aware of like these subtle microaggressions, we can address them. You know, asking people, did you have an issue with what I said? Or, you know, following up and having open discussions and not necessarily avoiding it. But I do think it's amazing when people who aren't Black openly talk about these things. I think it's great that Akil has white friends who have no issue embracing him and accepting him, as well as myself. But I do want people who aren't Black to have the capacity to really discuss things like those microaggressions, to have themselves be held accountable so that they're not continuing to do this to people who look like us.
Okay.
Oh, you know, I will say one thing. Right when the George Floyd, a lot of my friends coming to me, you know, and I was like, you need to talk to your uncle. Like that's the conversation you need to have with your uncle, with your grandfather. You know what I'm saying? Like, what can I do? That's what you can do, for starters. Wow. You know, so that's yeah.
Chalarra.
I mean, what Terri said, I'm over here like, yes. Yes. It took everything. It absolutely. And that's how it has played out for me. Mostly the microaggressions in workspaces.
Okay.
And just the accumulation over time, it really plays a toll.
Well, speak to it, because you know right now you're helping somebody that's watching this right now that's probably going through the same thing.
Yeah, and I think Terri really said it really well. Just saying, you know, I've been in environments being a female Black leader and maybe being the person, I guess that was the head person being white. And just feeling that person feeling threatened by the positive things that I was doing in the community and at work, and just saying things that they may have thought was nice, but they knew it wasn't nice, and I did not take it as a comment either.
Compliment.
One of those backhanded compliments.
Right.
And so you, meaning myself, you start to think, like Terri said, like, what do you do in those environments, and to try to be authentic to who I am and my own personal growth. And so one of the stress responses that many people feel are to freeze, run away, or fight, right? And so, you know, how to respond in the most appropriate way that feeds my soul well, and that can be that has been a struggle, and I have worked through that. So
before I move to the next section, I wanted to address the question that just popped up on the screen from Rochelle. She said, so how do you address microaggressions from the higher ups on the job?
Ooh.
Oh,
It's about to get real.
dance or be
Terri,
willing to walk
Terri, come on, Terri, talk about it. Oh, Chalarra, my bad. Go ahead, Chalarra. If you want to.
So I will take the ownership that I allowed it to happen longer than it should have. And so luckily I had safe spaces outside of work that other Black females and males that I could talk to. And like you said, I think we said earlier, you're like, yeah, that's happening to me too. So you realize that you're well, you know, you're not the only one, but you'd actually talk to people. And so for me, I just had to say it, like what you said, like name the behavior. What you said right in this moment, this is how that made me feel. And this is why it is not appropriate to say to me.
Right.
So finding my own voice and being able to say that. Go ahead, Terri. Yes.
No. I don't want to cut you off, Chalarra. I apologize. So I think for me, and I'm being mindful because I'm on a platform and this is not my own platform. But for me, I just want to urge people to lean into that discomfort when you experience things like that, because the message is telling you that you don't belong. But there's no reason why we don't deserve a seat at the table, right? Black women are the highest educated and the most brilliant in this country. You know, 2 of us are Black, 3 of us are Black women here, right? You deserve a seat at the table.
I'm gonna let that one go. I'm gonna let it go because I mean I got a little something, but I'm
She's saying women.
I understand what she meant.
Those are facts, though. Those are facts.
It's a fact. But no, we're all really brilliant. But what I'm saying is when you're experiencing these microaggressions, you start to question. And honestly, as much as I would love to address it with higher ups, I have tried to do that. They're higher ups. So I have this much of leverage in my position. It doesn't matter if I'm in a position of leadership. So instead of avoiding, which is how people typically respond to stress and anxiety, like Chalarra was mentioning, they fight, freeze, or fight, right? Or flee. Right. Instead of avoiding by fleeing, leaning into that discomfort and reminding myself, no, I still belong here and I can still speak up and I can still volunteer. And then, of course, doing your own work, seeing your therapist and working through managing your own defenses and reactions to situations like that. Yeah. Because situations like that are going to continue to happen, but it shouldn't silence me because it's happening. Right. So I think facing it is really important.
And also, can I add? And I think also what you just said, Terri, like piggyback on for that, like do the work on yourself so that you don't take that feeling into your other spaces and assume that people don't mean the best for you and so forth, and know that that's not always every person's what they mean when they engage with you.
And I'll say this, if you carry it with you, other people will feel that when you walk into the room, like, oh, she's going through something today. You know, so
yeah.
Kelson, is there one way to deal with stress? One way or another way, better way to deal with stress, one way or another?
I think you find what works for you. And at different times, you know, sometimes relieving stress can be taking a walk. Sometimes relieving stress can be like, you know what? I've had a long week. I'm going to get with my girl and we're going to go to brunch. You know, sometimes it can be going out on a date. Sometimes it could be doing some yoga. I think it's incumbent upon us again to just, find different outlets. And that happens when you quiet yourself and begin to find out things that you like.
Right.
You know?
So I know we're limited on time and I want to make sure that we're on track, but we've been tap dancing around one kind of conversation a little bit that I think, especially for my generation, right? Because I'm probably the youngest person on the call right now or on the live. So I will say it like this. There are some parents on here that, have either younger kids or adult kids or will eventually be adult kids, right? To them. And there are generational traumas that are never talked about. There are generational hurts that are never talked about, but they're passed down. And when the kid goes through it, it's labeled as acting out. It's labeled as, what are you talking about? Right. And so when you try to get in tune with yourself without having those conversations, or the parents not telling those conversations to the kids, they don't know that this has been passed down to them. Like this was something that kind of was inherited. So how do we get parents to be able to share transparently with their kids so that way there's an open space for them to be able to say, I can go to my mom, or I can go with my dad, or I can go with my grandparents or my guardian, however that is. So that way the stress doesn't have to lead to the gun violence or the bullying or, you know, the suicidal thoughts. How do we get those conversations to flow? Chalarra or Terri, or, you know, anybody want to step in on it? It doesn't matter at the point.
I can start by saying that it's so interesting you said that, JayCee, because me and my mother literally had a conversation last week about this.
Wow.
And research does show there's a lot of studies around intergenerational trauma and how it's passed down within your DNA. Me and my mother had parallel experiences, of course, decades apart, that neither of us realized were exactly the same. And literally, I'm on the phone like, Mom, why didn't you ever tell me this? This could have really helped me.
Help me.
You know what I mean? Hello. But of course, within the Black community, I'm Caribbean. So within a lot of cultures, African cultures, Caribbean cultures, it's almost like do what you're supposed to do. Don't ask any questions. And I think a lot of parents, because of the power differential, they have this ego. I don't want to seem like I was a bad person to my child. My child needs to know that, you know, do what I say, not as I do.
I do.
Right. Yep. So I would just urge parents to have the conversation, but really consider the consequences of not doing that. You know, one conversation, it could provide so much validation for what your child is experiencing. Yeah. But then there could be this like symbiotic moment of like, wow, you get me. Wow, you understand. Wow, you're my mom. You know, you're my parent. And I think if parents consider the consequences of not having these conversations, then that's what's going to lead them to risks. So if you can really consider the risks, manage your own anxiety around talking about these things and just opening up the conversation, to me, that's the best start before it's too late.
Right. And of course, you know, we as women, we're more vulnerable to have conversations, but we do have a pride and we do have ego. And of course, transparency comes out of frustration from us, but it does eventually come out. So my question becomes, and Akil or Konan, either one of y'all can chime in on this, being the males on the live tonight. You know, have you all been able to be open and transparent with cousins, kids, brothers, whatever it is, so that way there can be created a safe space for people that might be able to come to you?
As I'm getting older, absolutely. As I'm getting older, and because again, I'm on my journey as well. Right. So I am learning to be more transparent and learning to, you know, just when you be more transparent, let people know how you feel. You know, we don't always have to have the tough exteriors. You know, I think one of the problems that contribute to the plight as far as the violence is concerned in our community, Black men lack compassion. Right. You know, so I've made it a point, at least my good men in my circle, like I'm always telling them we love each other. Like because we elevate, you know what I'm saying? Like, so and we just have to continue to do that so that it spreads, you know, it spreads wide. And it's like I say, it's not as like, whoa, what's up with them? So right. It's tastemakers, you know, Konan, myself, guys like that, like we have to continue to push the narrative.
One of the things one of the things I believe is that we all need to you know, speak our truth. We all need to spread love. We all need to make sure we reach out and see how people are doing from time to time. Just make a phone call or say, hey, let's get together. And we have to make sure that we pull people with us when we go through stuff. Like Terri was saying, you got to express that to somebody that I went through this, because there's somebody else who's gonna say, oh, I went through that. I'm going through that. How did you get through it? Right. I mean, because I work on me every day. Right. Without a doubt. I work on me every day. I don't, it's not a day that I don't work on me. And I work on my mental and I work on my gratitude and my attitude every day, because, you know, in all of us, there's somebody we don't want to release. And I'm sure the ladies with the microaggression, there's somebody in both of them that they hold back every day. So, you know, there it is. So we all got to continue to work on us, but also we got to get back to the village and the child. Right. Everybody has to play a role. We can't just try to do it by ourselves, and people aren't able to do it by themselves right now, especially after going through and coming out, hopefully coming out.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Can I share a resource? I think we've been talking about just having encouraging conversations within families. So I'm like, can y'all see this? Becoming. It's, I don't know if you've seen it. I don't know if you've read the book, but this is a journal. So it is her journal, a guided journal for discovering your voice by Michelle Obama. So I think it's great for families to be able to use, because it's a guided journal. Like, it has journal prompts that you can work through together to get to know each other. Like, one says, what kind of childhood did your parents or grandparents have? How was it different from and similar to your own? Just things to have a conversation about that you might not necessarily just ask that question. Or another one, when have you had to swerve in life? How did it help you? Like,
it's a good question.
That's a good one, right?
Journaling is really key. That's another great mindfulness practice, because again, it forces you to kind of go within.
Right. Real quick, because we got like 3 minutes left. For those that are watching this, if you need help and we have not addressed your issue or something that you're going through, all the information on the bottom of the screen, shepherdpratt.org, 410-938-5000, Nami-Maryland. Visit their NamiMaryland.org as well. So any last things that you guys want to say to our viewers?
I do. And I know I want to go back to another question about caregivers. And so I think one thing that makes NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, very just unique and different is, it seeks to improve the quality of life for individuals with mental illness. So it's not just the person who's surviving and working on increasing and nurturing their mental health, but also their families and the wider community. And I think, Konan, you just shared the website, and they're also on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Nami Maryland. So they're just an effective program that can help you and help guide you with people who have personal lived experience as well. So I wanted to kind of share.
Terri?
Yeah, I just would encourage people just to recognize that there is help available. Never feel like your situation is so dark and that you can't see out of it. There's so many people who are willing and able to help you. Sheppard Pratt on the eating disorder unit, eatingdisorder.org. You'll see all of our levels of care. You can always go on that website to see the different services that we offer for eating disorders. Psychologytoday.com is a resource that I referenced earlier. You can find therapists who have different fees, and some fees are on sliding scale for help. BetterHelp.com is something that people can easily tap into that's virtual. If you don't really want to, do a lot, you can just go on there and talk to someone via text or talk to someone over the phone. But I do want to urge people to recognize that there are resources. And if you allow your current situation to dictate your future, you might not realize that you can come out on the other side of it.
Yeah.
I think most, if not all of us, have had very dark days, right? But then it passed with time because of what we did. So I just want you to know that you have options.
Yep. Akil?
Yeah. Well, again, thank you guys for having me. And just, piggybacking on what Chalarra and Terri said, I mean, the resources are available. We have to seek the resources. It's where we are. It is challenging. It is difficult, but it can be done.
Yep.
It can be done. People have went through dark days. You have actually survived every dark day that you've had in your life. You survived.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow, this has been amazing. It's so much that we did not even touch on. That's the crazy part, right? We got to do this again, okay? Because
absolutely,
I'm a former athlete. I suffered from depression for 10 years. And so athletes are high performers no matter what. And so many personalities in radio and things like it, corporate executive. There's so many different people that we didn't get to touch on. So I think we definitely got to do this again for sure.
Yeah, I believe that.
But this was great tonight. And of course, we, like I said, we appreciate Sheppard Pratt and Nami Maryland for being a part of our Minorities and Mental Health, the Stress Awareness Series. We appreciate all three of you all for just taking the time out just for a short hour to help somebody survive what they're going through. We had people that actually decided to say something live. That's something we can hold on to and say we did something tonight. So, if we needed to put a flag somewhere tonight, we definitely did that tonight,
Exactly. So we thank you all. We appreciate you. Would like to continue to, like JayCee said, have this conversation and have more people in the community join in and talk to us too, so we can help them. All right. We love you guys. Be safe and
Love, man.
Thank you. This was amazing. Thank you for making us feel so good. Thank you. Take care.
All right, everybody have a great night.